All right, well, 11 o'clock, and we love to start things on time here at Morefield. Good morning, everyone. I'm Brianna Carr, and I'm the Marketing Manager and Events Coordinator here at Morefield Communications. I want to welcome you and thank you for joining us today as we discuss which digital transformation might be best for your organization. We'll dive into the benefits and flexibility of Sd-Wan and SASE. Before we introduce our speakers, we have a few housekeeping items. Attendees listening in are muted, but are encouraged to ask questions by typing the question in the chat area on the control panel. We will answer all questions after the presentation, and we'll also be recording this session, and we'll make it available to all attendees. Our presenters today are Jonathan Mifflin and Ray Watson. Jonathan is a Cloud Carrier Service Team Lead here at Morefield and has over 23 years of experience working in the technology industry. Ray Watson is the Vice President of Technology at Masergy. Masergy is recognized as a pioneer in software-defined networking and a proud partner of Morefield Communications. And with that, I'll hand it over to Jonathan to kick us off.
Great, thank you, Brianna, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Before we turn this over to Ray to go through our material that we prepared for today, I want to take a minute and provide a little bit of a backstory of why we put this presentation together, a sort of why are we here today covering this topic. And at Morefield, our tagline is we help organizations make smart technology decisions that enable their success. And thinking back through this past year, as I have, and I know many of you probably have as well, our organizations have had to make a lot of decisions, and we've had to adapt and we've had to overcome. And core to those decisions and core to the operation of our organization and our business is the network. The network is the fabric that ties our offices together, that enables employees to collaborate, to share files, phone calls, chats, join video conferencing. The network that operates our business is fundamental to the operation of that business. And as we're looking ahead, coming out of the pandemic, and we're rethinking maybe how our organizations are going to operate in this new world, we also need to think, how is the network going to complement our business, our organization? And so thinking of those, I can think of some core areas that, and we kind of went over a couple of them prior, but where the network impacts, first starting in the upper left-hand corner, and as we reimagine the network, how is the network going to support our employees who, largely a lot of statistics that we're seeing out there is we've all been working from home for the past year, and there are many that continue to see that trend, that we're going to continue to work from home. And if we go to an office or go into the office for the day, it's going to be with purpose. It's going to be to meet with coworkers, meet in a conference room, meet in a huddle spot, work on a project, work on a report, and then likely the next day, we're going to be back at home, working from our home office again. So, reimagining the network, how is that supporting that transition from in-office to working from home? Likely also in the lower left-hand corner there, our real estate, rethinking, are we going to need the same commercial footprint that we have today? Are we going to need additional locations, maybe more of a regional play to accommodate clients and customers closer to where they live and work? And of those customers in the upper right-hand corner there, how are we going to be interacting with them? How is the network going to support them? Are they going to be coming into our office? Are we going to be going into their offices or spaces? And in a large part, I think we will. We'll have more face-to-face interaction. I don't see that going away. But I also continue to see we've learned a lot about virtual interactions the past year and how those can be effective means of communicating with our patrons, our vendors, our clients, and our customers. So thinking and reimagining, how is the network going to ensure that we have a rich experience, we have the right screens, we have the right cameras, we have the right rooms, we have enough bandwidth to support those very rich interactions with our clients, customers, and patrons. And of course, the last block here, security. And why we have all been working through a lot of disruption in our lives, in our personal and work lives, the bad guys have not gone away. And many have seized upon the opportunity to use this to take advantage of compromised systems, gain access to files, information, network. So any rethink or reimagination or repurpose of the network will have to include security. We have to keep that at the top of our list to ensure that whatever we build and whatever we rely on to operate our business is secure and is able to operate in that way. So one more slide before I hand over to Ray and we get to the content, and that's just really, thinking about strategy and thinking about your new the new business working in this post-pandemic world, and thinking about your network that today that largely was built pre-pandemic, and the strategy that was used to build that pre-pandemic network and the business that it served for that, and then thinking ahead to what's the business of tomorrow going to look like, what's the new organization going to look like, and what are the requirements of that network. And I threw up some points up here that I think are relevant to rethinking that of that new network, reimagining that new network. Is it adaptable? Is it able to scale bandwidth? Is it able to add sites? Is it able to turn up and accommodate things as they change in a very rapid pace? Is it easy to manage? Is it simple to manage? Does it have a single pane of glass for administration? Is it unified in the agreements and the invoicing? And then finally, and the last again, is it secure? Because again, as we mentioned in the previous slide, security is fundamental to the operation of a network as we look at today and then going forward. So with that, I will pivot here and transition over to our key speaker from Masergy. I'd like to introduce Ray Watson. And Ray, if you can, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. And thank you to Morefield and all of you that are attending today. Our topic, as Jonathan very well set up, is digital transformation, specifically how two technologies, software-defined wide area networking and secure access service edge, can address digital transformation. But I thought, before we really get into that part, we probably should define what digital transformation is, because just like that term cloud, it could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. To be extremely simple about it, digital transformation is the process of using digital compute, basically, to change processes, organizations, or cultures, right? And it also has a lot to do with customer experience. And so when we think about digital transformation, some of the biggest terms that you hear kind of thrown around are obviously cloud, innovation, being able to provide analytics, mobile, a lot of the things that Jonathan just talked about with regards to being having agility and being secure by design. That's all a big part of digital transformation. But, next Thursday is the 1-year anniversary of the date that most people say they really began to identify the seriousness of COVID-19, because that next Thursday was the night that Tom Hanks was announced as having COVID-19 and the NBA canceled. That was that particular night. So we're really close to the 1-year anniversary of the pandemic. And what's really interesting about COVID-19 is most companies were already underway on the process of digital transformation, using these technologies to provide these. And some industries were further along than others, right? But almost everybody had already begun this journey, but it might be a 3 to 6 year journey, whereas COVID-19 accelerated that in many cases to a 3 to 6 month journey, so to speak, because of some of the incredible pressures that happened overnight. So because of that, digital transformation has kind of become now understood and defined by, first and foremost, a huge emphasis on cybersecurity. And we're going to talk quite a bit about why that is. The explosion of the mobile workforce, which was happening before, but it used to be when we talked about mobile workforce, we were kind of thinking in terms of somebody using their iPhone in a Starbucks or maybe their tablet on an American Airlines plane. And now we really are talking more about work from home or from huddle offices, et cetera, because work from home is a real reality to, not just what we've been going through for the last 12 months, but going forward as well. Now, cloud deployments were already the de facto deployment model, but because of the fact that turning up new servers and services involves sending someone to a traditional data center, building a server, going through those, COVID also highlighted the importance of the agility that you get around the cloud. Of course, most of us have been on about 1,000 video calls since COVID-19 began. If you just do the math around that, that is quite a lot of time to be spent on WebEx or on Teams or on Zoom. And it just simply comes down to having the need for agility and cost savings. And that agility was really highlighted by the events of 51 weeks ago, because some companies were able to adapt immediately and almost painlessly to almost all of their workers working from home. And some companies really struggled with things like VPN ports or security policies or whatever else. But where are we at on that work from home side? Because this is a particularly a piece of interest now when we think about post-pandemic. So it probably will not surprise anyone on this call that nearly all companies implemented some type of work from home policy since the beginning of the outbreak. But one of the things that it is kind of important to understand is that almost 2/3 of their employees said that technology is a hindrance to being able to do this effectively. Now, this isn't really fair, Jonathan, because when we talk about an ideal work from home deployment, it would not be something that everyone tried to do simultaneously while also trying to homeschool their kids and set up Zooms and handle relatives and all of the things associated with pandemics. So it was a little bit of an unfair environment to try to deploy that. But from everything from bandwidth contention issues to predictable computers to lack of help desk support, the employees certainly have a need for predictable, reliable technologies, specifically to those cloud applications. And then on the other side, nearly 2/3 of managers say that a lack of employee engagement is a work inhibitor from the work from home model. Now, again, this is also not fair, because we are all dealing with different issues at home that have a lot more to do with work-life balance, work hours, right? We eliminated commuting in many cases, but our hours became much longer for the work side. And then as the pandemic has kind of set on, we've gotten into some things around mental health issues, what they call Zoom fatigue, which is when you spend too much time on cameras every single day, and the way that kind of feels a little bit more fatigued. But the reality is that no matter how we feel about this, this is going to be the new normal, the new reality from now on, because almost all organizations plan seeing a permanent rise in work from home. And Jonathan, I love the way you said, we're going to go to the office, but we're going to go with purpose, because that sounds really good. Most people do not like going to meetings or even Zoom meetings without purpose. And having that really reemphasized focus on when we get together in person is extremely welcome. So just to kind of summarize the challenges around the work from home side, from a technical standpoint, VPNs can be complex and expensive, and in many cases they can be, confusing. Because there's so many more work from home workers than there were, for example, branch offices, that's a much wider attack surface that's there. And in some cases, the massive productivity gains that you get from workers not commuting can be offset by other issues around those strategies. From a bits and bytes standpoint, we also have to deal with the fact that in many cases, you have bandwidth contention in your home. Maybe your Wi-Fi is competing with your children's Fortnite, or their Zoom calls for school. And also, a lot of people really are very curious and concerned about, what will this look like? What, am I going to be 50% part-time, 50% at home, 50% in the office? And when does that workday begin and end? Because so many companies had begun to have soft rules about kind of when the workday begins and ends. Most of us were already answering emails outside of the hours of business hours before, but that's only become much more compounded because of the work from home situation. So those are some of the challenges that kind of COVID brought together. Now, conveniently or not conveniently, there are two technologies that were already being adopted widely that address a lot of these concerns and that are really well suited for this new reality. And that is Secure Access Service Edge and software-defined wide area networking. Again, these technologies were already on a 4 to 5 year adoption curve that just simply got accelerated, by about 80% because of COVID-19. But before I kind of get into that, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background about the company that I work for, so that you know kind of who you're talking to. The company I work for is named Masergy, and we're a 20-year-old company with clients in 102 countries all over the world. 1,600, a little bit over 1,600 clients, and we really do three things. We provide connectivity We protect that data, and we provide collaboration, such as unified communications as a service and web collaboration. So that's it. We connect, we protect, and we collaborate. And the way that that's actually done is we built out a global backbone all over the world with points of presence designed originally to perform Ethernet services, MPLS and VPLS services. And then over time, that has really evolved to purely software-defined networking and software-defined controls. So one of the biggest kind of benefits on the Masergy side is the bandwidth on demand capability. And if you ever get the opportunity to actually see a demo, that's where you can turn up and turn down bandwidth controls, quality of service, VLANs, clouds yourself on the portal. You're completely in control of that yourself. And over time, those software-defined products have kind of evolved into those three categories of connectivity, security, and combined communications. And the de facto technology that rides today is software-defined wide area networking. And that SD-WAN can include a lot of different types of technology, whether it's Ethernet or fiber optics or wireless or MPLS. It's agnostic to the methods that the cloud has reached. And then we put some really advanced analytics and control on there. And then another part that really ties directly into the SD-WAN side is SD-WAN is a key component of something called SASE, and it is pronounced SASE. That is Secure Access Service Edge, and SASE is a key component of SD-WAN as well. So those are very complementary technologies. Really, what SASE does is it enables your network, and network enables your security. So it really is truly the combination of those two. And in the Masergy world, we're bringing together that with service level agreements that address the performance of both aspects, including the customer service. And the biggest takeaway is, 20 years ago, everybody was really concerned about their connectivity to their corporate offices or to their data centers. But today, the number one thing that everyone is concerned about is how their applications perform for remote users, including work from anywhere users, as they reach Amazon Web Services and Microsoft Azure and Salesforce.com and Concur, all those cloud service providers or software as a service providers. And at Masergy, we're really unique in the fact that we're guaranteeing that performance. Even on your work from home workers, we're guaranteeing how reachable those cloud applications are and how well they perform, which is, again, extremely timely in the environment around COVID, because everybody really wants to make sure that their video calling is working and their cloud applications are. And we call that managed SD-WAN secure, and it can use the public internet as a transport to the secure access network. It can even ride exclusively over the top of the public internet, or if you've already got an existing wide area network that's out there today, we can even let you bring your own network, and we'll put our intelligence and monitoring on top of that and still build out a network where we can guarantee the performance to the cloud providers. In addition to that, one product that we did launch post-March of last year, specifically to address some of the needs that workers had from home, is Masergy's SD-WAN at Home product. And what that is, and it's pretty neat, we deploy a lightweight SD-WAN appliance in your home or in your executive's home work from home environment. And then once that device is deployed, they don't need to use a VPN client anymore. They'll have a separate virtual LAN, a VLAN or an SSID on the Wi-Fi side. And basically their traffic will be prioritized. The corporate traffic that's business traffic is prioritized above all of the other home traffic, such as Netflix or Apple or Facebook or their kids' video games or whatever else. In many cases, this would be over 2 connections. So you might have a cable and a fiber or a cellular backup 4G, 5G connection, just to provide that uptime and resilience. And it's designed so that once you have that redundancy built in, not only is the SD-WAN at Home device going to prioritize your ingress and egress traffic, but in addition, if it has to fail over from one circuit to another, it will do so without dropping a video call or a voice call. Okay, so it's very, very fast. It's very rapid. And we can use some other error correction techniques to guarantee that performance. Again, most of this traffic is destined for Office 365 or to Zoom or to Salesforce, because that's where everybody is really going. And this SD-WAN at home product also includes a lightweight client that runs on your iPhone, so that if you do not have that appliance in your home, or if you are in a Marriott in Pennsylvania or in Washington, D.C. or wherever else, you can get that benefit even on hotel bandwidth by using your mobile device. And again, this is integrated and built into that software-defined wide area network that you've built out there. And that's kind of the two flavors around. The biggest difference to remember is the difference between whether you have an appliance or not at your actual house, because most people are not going to travel around with a little firewall in their bag. Although there might be people on this call that might use that. It is somewhat unusual. In addition to that, so when we talk about that entire kind of approach, including software-defined wide area networking, is known as SASE. That is the Secure Access Service Edge. And I want to talk a little bit about the way that works, kind of from the top down, so to speak. So in order to be SASE, a network solution has to have software-defined wide area networking, something called SWG, or Secure Web Gateway, which is really a cloud-enabled product for security that doesn't require that appliance. Firewall as a service, something called CASB, which is an intermediary and a secure way of providing those cloud services to folks like Amazon and Google. And then also the concept of zero trust. And zero trust is a relatively new way of looking at least privileged access, which is a previous security principle, whereby you assume that everybody has no reason to be trusted unless they prove otherwise. In addition to that, some of the functions around this, of course, have to do with visibility and control and behavioral analytics. More recently, we've seen a lot of interest in shadow IT discovery, which is being able to document what your workers are using on corporate resources that involve potentially another threat vector for security issues, on what's called shadow IT, and cloud workload protection, which is basically preventing adversaries or bad guys from being able to interfere with those. And then, of course, on the Masergy side, we blend that together with a lot of different network functions on the SD-WAN side, so that you can have mix and match fiber and Ethernet, et cetera. Now, SASE was actually defined before COVID. It was written in October 2019. Okay, but it really took off in March of 2020, because this model is designed so that your experience as an end user is the same wherever you are, whether you're in a branch office or you're at the corporate headquarters or you're a remote worker. So you can see why SASE kind of became the de facto way of delivering some digital transformation needs, primarily because it's got that security built in. And our SASE story really ties into that global edge network, being able to mix and match software and hardware firewalls, having things like the shadow IT and the identity-based management included in the service, and then also having a wide variety of additional security offerings that you can mix and match that go way beyond SASE. So we're not exclusively offering SASE. We also have some additional offerings for folks that SASE might not be a fit for, at one of your manufacturing locations or at one of the overseas sites that it doesn't fit for there. But from a differentiation standpoint, it really has to do with the fact that we have a mix and match of the best of breed around this. And we also have a mix of both premise and on cloud and on device. And the way that the engagement model works, we have Rich Garner is one of the solutions engineers that's on this call. We have a very highly engaged engineering model for how we provide these solutions. The general way that these are usually very highly customized. And the way that engagement works is generally we will schedule a demo where we can show some of the tools. I think we have the ability to do that through the Morefield account team that's on today, and actually kind of show some examples, some real world examples of how these technologies are helping other customers in your industry or in your field, for example. And then we kind of go through a discovery process where we document what it is that you're trying to accomplish and where you're going, and then eventually kind of provide a solution using these multiple components. Then when it's completely done and proposed and solutioned and everything else, we back it up with some absolutely trailblazing service level agreements. And that really has to do with, if it's properly designed, 100% uptime guarantee per location on the redundant sites, the sites where we have multiple paths in and multiple electricity. 100% cloud service availability to all those cloud providers, including your work from home workers, as long as they can get to your SD-WAN, so to speak, or to the Masergy core network, we can guarantee performance to those cloud providers. 100% in sequence packet delivery, sub 1 millisecond jitter, which jitter is the variance of latency measurements across time. All of our services have 5-minute or less proactive notifications so that our network operations centers are proactively reaching out to you before you reach out to us about a trouble ticket or about an impairment or about an issue. I think we run about 91% proactive ticket notification today, which is pretty good. I mean, you'll never quite get to 100% because some customers will always call with questions or things that, you know, they just want to clarify around there. And then on the HA locations where we properly design these and build in the redundancy, we even do proactive crediting on service level agreements, which is somewhat unheard of for large global carriers to actually issue the applicant credits before you even ask for them, because most carriers make you go chase them down and ask for credits and things like that. So it's a little bit different. It's a very heavy engineering firm. The vast majority of my employees are engineers, and we take a lot of pride around that net promoter score side. And I've actually got one of our account directors from Pennsylvania on the phone, and I'm hoping he could tell you a little bit about an example Pennsylvania company that we serve kind of in this capacity, kind of as a case study. And then I think, Jonathan, I think we're going to take some questions or something from the audience, but I can't see the questions. So maybe you or Brianna can help me with that in just a second. Brian, are you on?
I am. Thank you very much, Ray. So I'm Brian Dean, Global Account Director. I am based in Collegeville, Pennsylvania, or right outside of the King of Prussia area between King of Prussia and Limerick. And worked with a company, a global manufacturer out of the Scranton-Wilkes-Barre area. This global manufacturer has about 20,000 different parts that they manufacture, all customized for their end users. They had originally come to us because they were looking for a different way to network. Before, they had MPLS with one of the legacy providers that are out there, one of the large ones, and they had DIA connections from each one of their locations, terminating into a Cisco router. The issue that they were running into was, as a global organization, they had 27 different internet providers, meaning when something went down at the middle of the night, they were disrupted, and they had to hop up and figure out which internet provider they were using, who they needed to call, who they needed to work with to get that done. In addition, they wanted to try and migrate away from MPLS at all their locations and leave it at the core locations of the manufacturing. Manufacturing were key to their business. If they couldn't have their network up and reliable at their manufacturing sites, they weren't shipping products, they weren't making revenue. They came to us with those assumptions that they wanted to move to the cloud. Most of their traffic was to Azure and to Oracle. So what we were able to do was deploy a global SD-WAN network for them. And we were able to consolidate their vendors from 27 vendors, actually 28 vendors that they were using, down to a single provider. And what we were able to do was able to classify the locations based on the criticality of it. And we created a hybrid network environment for them. Some MPLS, some DIA, some broadband, some wireless and LTE in there as well. And that was deployed globally. And the ability that we could help their work from home users be able to connect back into the closest point of presence on our network. So we solved that middle mile issue. And we talk about the middle mile issue of, I've got to go from the Asia Pac region into the States. Well, if I do that over the internet, I'm going to go through 20 different POPs and peering points throughout that. So they're able to connect up onto the Masergy network and guarantee some application performance there. So we're able to consolidate down the 28 vendors down to one. If they have an issue, we are proactively reaching out to them. Whether it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 o'clock in the morning, we're actually working on those directly. The second phase to the project was that they had legacy Cisco routers and ASAs that were out there, and they had some security concerns. As you move to SD-WAN, you're opening yourself up with a lot more ingress and egress points to the internet. So one of the things they wanted to work on was the security. They only had 2 security engineers. And frankly, when you're in the Scranton-Wilkesboro area, it's tough to go find security experts out there. So what we were able to do was able to augment that. So we deployed the SD-WAN with our unified threat management or next generation firewall capabilities, and the ability that we could take the alerts that were coming out of there and send those to our 24/7 SOC so that we could analyze and tell them, hey, here are the 5 issues you really need to look at today. There might have been 2,500 alerts that come through, but there was only 5 that they really needed to work on, and using the AI on that side. So we were able to better protect them on that side and help them to really have a 24/7 security operations center. The 2 guys, obviously, they had to take vacation, Christmas Day, those types of things. We were the eyes on the glass for them during that to let them know if there was any issues. Finally, after they deployed the network and the security, they came back to us and they said, hey, we've got legacy phone systems that are out there. We've got Avaya, we've got Cisco, we've got Alcatel, we've got Mitel. They grew through acquisition. So any kind of phone system you could think of, they had. They said, we want to streamline this. We want to get down to more of a cloud communications offering. And what we were able to do was create a hybrid voice offering for them that incorporated some of the Avaya, some of the Ciscos that they had in there, but do fully hosted for the locations that had end-of-life PBXs and still be able to incorporate that into the dial plan. And then more importantly, they were looking for MS Teams integration. They were looking to be able to utilize the licenses that they had from their enterprise license agreement with Microsoft. We were able to connect them out to a direct connect into Microsoft and the ability to deliver the SIP trunks into 30 countries for them. And the reason that that was so important for them was they went to Microsoft and looked at their offering. But the problem was it was only North American based. It was only American based, to be honest with you. So they missed the other 12 countries that they were in. The second problem they had was it was billed by concurrent by user. With us, we bill it by concurrent user path. So say they had 5,000 end users out there. Microsoft wanted to charge them 5,000 SIP trunks. With us, we were able to do 30% of that. It saved them 50 to 60% off of their calling with the Microsoft Teams. So at the end of the day, we were able to deliver them true cost savings on the MS Teams of 50 to 60%. We were able to deliver them better security throughout the enterprise with 24/7 SOC services and the ability to look at AI and the ability to really drill down. We were able to double or triple their bandwidth in most cases to their locations. And at their primary locations, we were able to give them 100% uptime, availability, and guarantee. And today, over the next 2 weeks, we're going to be coming out with a case study on that. And if you're interested, I can share that case study with you. So they are somebody right in our backyard that has utilized our services and seen tremendous results because of it.
And Brian, I don't know if you said this or not, but how long have you been working for Masergy in Pennsylvania?
17 years. So
and in 17 years, what is the most common thing that your customers tend to tell you about their experience with us? What kind of feedback do you hear?
The feedback I hear is that we are the Tesla or we are the Southwest or JetBlue Airlines in our industry, meaning that you have the legacy providers out there like United and American and all those that aren't really known for their customer experience or customer service. And they're very shocked that a company like ourselves can better handle their organization, especially if you're not the Fortune 500. If you're Fortune 501 and up, that's where we succeed the most in. So they're shocked that there's actually different alternatives to AT&T, Verizon, some of the others that are out there. And they're also shocked that we're able to consolidate down everything and not have to worry about 50, 60 different global providers.
Great. Well, thank you very much for telling us that. And I think that folks that are interested in that case study can reach out through Morefield or through you to request that and or even the demo, right? Is that right?
Absolutely. So we do a demo of not only our web portal that's second to none in the industry. We've done things like bandwidth on demands for the last 20 years. That's still stuff that some of the larger providers are trying to get to. The reason being is that they have disparate networks. They're still trying to combine the blue network with the red network with the green network. So we're now able to give the single visibility into it. We can show you our AI ops, as well as we can take a deeper dive into that case study. And, as Ray, we customize every solution for our customers. So, and we work with them hand in hand to deliver the most innovative solution out there.
So I definitely want you to stick around because I know we've got some questions in the group, but it's kind of wrapping up the Masergy story. It really has to do with that platform, guaranteeing the application performance. And then as Brian mentioned, I think with the Tesla metaphor or the JetBlue metaphor, we take a really great deal of pride in how we serve Morefield customers and customers in general around that customer experience. So Brianna, I think you have both some questions and also some housekeeping things that we need to go over as well. Is that true?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you both, Ray and Brian. That was an amazing amount of information, and I'm sure that everyone probably does have more questions than are coming through here, but that'll be great. They can follow up via email or send them to us later. But I have a few that came through now. Let's see here. What do I need to consider when looking at SD-WAN and SASE options? And the follow-up is, what differentiates the providers?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And unfortunately, I think that the marketplace, because SASE and because SD-WAN have become so high, it can be pretty noisy. It can be pretty confusing, right? There's a few dozen people that are offering these services, and when they're all talking about different bells and whistles and features, everybody can kind of be talking about different things that may or may not be relevant to you. And so I would say the first and most important part is to understand what you are trying to accomplish, what your desired business outcomes are, before necessarily focusing on what the vendors are particularly offering. And I know Morefield, you have quite a few carriers in your ecosystem, so you have some different offerings that are available out there. But just a few things that I think are important to consider. First and foremost, and of course I'm very, very biased, is customer service, is the customer satisfaction score. So there's kind of an industry standard way of looking at customer satisfaction that's called Net Promoter Score. It's not just for companies like Masergy, it's for companies in every industry. I would look for what their Net Promoter Score is, especially what that Net Promoter Score is over time. Obviously, being able to find referenceable customers that are from your field would be a big one for me as well. And then also, how much expertise do they have about your line of business and what it is that you kind of do? I mean, and those are just off the top of my head. Brian or Rich, you guys might want to add one as well. What would you look for if you were picking an SD-WAN provider?
I think the biggest thing is the ability to not only hit the SD-WAN, but also to be able to hit the security as well. Security is paramount, as we've talked about, the phishing attacks and everything else that's taking place. About 90% of the SD-WAN opportunities we're talking about involve security.
Are there more, Brianna?
Great. There are. What security ramifications does SD-WAN open with so many Ingress, Egress points to the internet?
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah, so even without the work from home side, let's just put that aside for a second. Traditional wide area networks, whether we were talking about frame relay or we were talking about MPLS even, you normally had your offices go through central drain points to the internet. So rather than accessing directly local from the branch, they were typically going back through a corporate firewall or through a corporate data center, where the internet filtering was done and a lot of the data security side was. With SD-WAN, because you really want to use those connections as active, in most cases, you're going to want that direct internet access so that the branch doesn't have to be hauled all the way back to your corporate offices. And that does indeed open up a lot more attack surfaces as well, because you now have those ingress egress points at every single branch. Now, the good news is that with the concept of zero trust network access, you're assuming in the design that every location has direct access to the internet anyway, because in many cases, there were always examples of people either turning their phone into a hotspot that then bridged into the corporate network, or they had other things that were coming in from home on USB drives or whatever else. we are wanting to secure every single point as if it was exposed to the public internet. And that is something that is extremely important to understand and design. On the other hand, you also don't want to get into a situation where I think Brian was talking about someone having dozens and dozens of ISPs. You don't necessarily want dozens and dozens of firewall policies either. You really want centralized policy control and management. And that's where it really makes more sense to use a managed service provider who can really keep their eyes on those evolving threats and things in the threat intelligence side and be able to adapt to them very, very quickly. So security definitely takes on a bigger role, and when you move to software-defined wide area networking, as it should, by the way, because that's a natural part of a lot of the things that we were talking about. And then in addition to that, of course, on top of all of that, we also have the work from home scenarios, which is part of the Sd-Wan and SASE solution too, because most corporations prior to a year ago next week, really weren't thinking in terms of securing their workers' home networks or even needing to secure their workers' home networks, right? But because it's now part of the corporate landscape, that's why having a dedicated appliance like the Masergy work from home or Sd-Wan at home device really can kind of make sense, is because you can have a secured portion of their home network that is protected, to the level of enterprise protection rather than residential protection.
Great answer. Thanks for that. We have a couple coming in asking about the middle mile problem. Here's one that kind of sums it up. It is Sd-Wan the access methodology, and what is the middle mile problem?
Yeah, so it absolutely is. The Sd-Wan can be an access methodology. I think, Brian, you were the one who brought up middle mile, weren't you? Do you want to go ahead and try to explain that again, or better this time?
So what the middle mile issue is that you're trying to communicate between global office sites, and you're trying to do that over the internet. There's many different pairing points that you would have to hit in order to traverse from, say, the Asia Pac to here in Philadelphia or Pittsburgh, okay? Each time that happens, you get some degraded services from there. The middle mile issue that we solve is you actually are riding our Masergy backbone that we have deployed globally so that you get better experience and end user application performance because you're riding a private network from the, say, Mumbai to Philadelphia instead of riding over the internet. As far as access methodologies, we mentioned MPLS. MPLS is one area that or way that you can connect back into our network. The other ways you can connect back in are DIA, broadband, wireless, and customer provided internet as well. So if a customer's already got an internet connection, say with Comcast, it's still got another 2 years left on it, we would subscribe to the theory of, if they're not causing you a problem, don't eat the early termination liability. We'll just incorporate that into our solution.
Great answer.
Thanks, Brian. If anyone else has anything else they want to put into the chat or the question and answer, welcome to add them in there. We'll give it another minute. I know a lot of information was covered. We will make the slides available, and we have it as a recording. And also, as you think of questions later today, as you're processing all this information, feel free to reach out to your Morefield representative, send us an email, give us a call. We have chat on our website. You just have a quick question, send us a chat. We're glad to answer any questions and help you figure out how you want to move forward and move forward here. I don't see any more questions coming through, but I want to thank everyone for joining us. I want to thank our speakers, thank all the attendees, and we'll be reaching out to you directly via email to ensure that you receive your Grubhub gift card in appreciation for joining us today. And I want to hope everyone else has a wonderful rest of the day. And with that, we'll say goodbye. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.